Hey kiddos, today we are going to learn to make observations to provide evidence of the effects of weathering and erosion. We are going to take a look at a mystery science today and let Doug talk to us specifically about how water can change weathering and erosion and what that water can do to the land that is around us. So go ahead and get comfortable, turn your attention to the screen, and we will start our video.
Hi, it's Doug. I'm not sure what it's like where you live, but where I grew up, the land was very flat. There are no mountains. There's not even any hills. It's all flat cornfields, as far as your eyes can see. So whenever I saw a picture of some place that had mountains, I'd always think, wow, those look amazing. I'd love to see those close up. When I was 6 years old, I got my first chance. My mom and dad were able to get time away from work and took my family on a car trip through the western United States. I was so excited. We drove through states like Colorado, Utah, and Arizona. And on that car trip, for the first time ever, I did get to see mountains, and they were amazing. I got to see huge mountains. I got to see small mountains. I got to see hills. Whatever I saw, the land was always bumpy. It was hardly flat anywhere in the western United States. But while we were visiting these states, I was surprised to find out about a totally new kind of landform that I'd never seen. You see, mountains are places where the land goes up. But on our trip through the mountains, we saw places where the land goes down, and it's just as amazing to see. A place where the land goes down like that is called a canyon. You might have heard that word before. Here's a picture of a real canyon. In fact, this is the most famous canyon in the world. Do you know what it is? It's the Grand Canyon in Arizona. It's like a huge crack in the earth. Here's another picture of it. It's really wide, and it's nearly a mile deep. Now, there are a lot of other canyons. They don't always have to be so big. And some of my favorite examples are these smaller canyons found in Arizona and Utah. There's even ladders so that you can climb down and go into these small canyons. Let's see what it's like inside of one. Here are some people walking through the bottom of that canyon. I said canyons are like a big crack in the ground. Why do you think there are these cracks in the ground like this? What makes a canyon?
I want you to think in your brain, what do you think can create these cracks in the ground like this? What do you think makes a canyon?
So why do you think there are cracks in the ground like this? What makes a canyon? You might have had a few different ideas. One thing you might have thought of is that there could have been an earthquake a long time ago, which made a crack in the ground, and it's just been there ever since. But when there's an earthquake, it does something more like this. Earthquakes can lift the ground up, or even cause the ground to go down a little. But earthquakes don't always make cracks in the ground. Sometimes they do. But here's the thing about those kinds of cracks. They're actually just a thin rip in the ground. They're never deep cracks, the kind you could fall into or walk around in. An earthquake crack also tends to be in a straight line like this. But if you look at canyons, they're not anything like that. They're usually deep enough you could walk around in them. And they're not always straight lines either. Canyons are cracks that can curve around, like the shape of a river. That's actually a clue to why there are canyons. If you're around a canyon during or after a rainstorm, you have to be very careful. Because canyons are cracks in the ground, water might start to pool up at the bottom of the canyon like this. And if that water got too deep, that wouldn't be good. Look at this. This is after a rainstorm, and you can see water doesn't just sit at the bottom of the canyon. It's actually flowing out of the canyon. Could that be a clue about how canyons form? Look at the color of the water. Do you see that? That water is so muddy and brown. The water is the same color as the canyon walls. It's all full of sand and mud and even rocks. It's like the water is carrying stuff out of the canyon. Could it be that water is what makes a canyon? If that's true, it would mean something kind of unbelievable. It would mean water is acting like an excavator, carving sand and mud and rocks out of the ground. Is water really that powerful that it could cut into the earth like an excavator? Well, could you think of an experiment that would let you figure out whether water could really make a canyon? In today's activity, you're going to create a model of a place where the land goes up, a spot that's higher than all the land around it. Then you'll pour water on that land to act like rain and see what happens as it rains again and again. Now, when I say you're going to make a model, I mean you're going to make a small version of something. Like, here's an actual big piece of land. This is a flat hill called a plateau. You could try to experiment with this big piece of land by pouring water on it, but that would take a lot of water. By making a smaller version of this, though, now it's easy to experiment with it, so we can learn what happens. Scientists often create models in order to figure out how things work. What do you think will happen when you drip water on your land? For this activity, you need to be a really good observer. You're going to drip 4 small cups of water on the land and watch carefully for any changes. All right, are you ready to see if water can change the land? I'll show you how to set things up, step by step.
So we are going to skip through the part where we set everything up, and we are going to watch the wrap up of the video and what happened in the experiment.
So you did an experiment to find out what happens to land when it rains over and over. This is a sped up video showing what I got when I tried this experiment. Just like you did, I poured the water over and over. And as you can see, when I did this, I actually saw a little canyon form. Maybe you got a canyon too, but you might have gotten to see something different. Like, watch this. Notice how this time when I did it, all the land kind of spilled out. Well, this happens in real life after heavy rains, as you can see here in these mountains. Or maybe when you did this experiment, you got something like this. You notice how the edges of the land start to crumble and fall and left behind a cliff? Well, that's also something that happens sometimes after heavy rains, as you can see here. Water really is as powerful as an excavator. Water is what digs out canyons. It even dug out the Grand Canyon. In fact, the Grand Canyon, along with a lot of other canyons, has a river at the bottom of it, which keeps carrying dirt and rocks away. As time passes, water will make the Grand Canyon even deeper and wider than it is now. In all of these examples, you could see how the water can pick up sand and dirt and rocks and carry them. That means the land moves from one place to another. The power of water to move land, that's what in science we call erosion. Erosion is so powerful that it can change the shape of the land around us, creating new landforms, like canyons, or these things you might have seen. We call them fans. And these things, we call these landslides. You don't even have to live near a canyon to find your own example of erosion. Check this out. My friend Pat spotted these canyons forming near her house. Now, without anything to compare it to, you might think these are pretty big canyons. But look now as we zoom out. You can see the person next to it, and now you see these are just tiny canyons about the size of a person. You'll be surprised what you find if you look around, especially after it rains. Look for gutters, or look at ditches on the sides of roads, or even any streams or creeks that you have nearby you. You can find small versions of canyons. And if it's not raining, that's no problem. Use a bucket of water or a hose and spray it on some dirt or sand. See what tiny versions of canyons and other erosion landforms that you can find near you. Have fun and stay curious.
You now have 2 jobs. Your first job is to go to your Google Classroom and answer one question. The question is, how did water change the land in the video that we just watched? Your second thing you need to do is you need to think in your brain of either a place in your neighborhood, a place in town, or a place that you've seen while you've been traveling. And I want you to explain it to your teacher on how water changed the land using erosion. So go ahead and head to your Google Classroom. The directions will be on there so you don't have to keep this video up. And stay curious, do a fantastic job, and we'll see you kiddos in math.